Hi guys, Ezra here from Homeowner DIY. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the DIY version of a coolant flush on my 2000 Civic here behind me. Now I've done these coolant flushes, I've done 6 or 8 of them on this car because the mileage is now so high. Guys, the manual says every 40,000 kilometers, every 25,000 miles, or every 2 years. I don't hit the mileage anymore because this is just my work car, so I don't drive it all that much. But it's been at least 3 years now since I've done a coolant flush, so it's time to do it. So guys, there's two main things you need to keep in mind when you're going to do a coolant flush. First of all, the engine has to be cold. And then the other thing is all the coolant, it's highly toxic, so guys, don't leave this out for animals or anything like that. And ethanol glycol, which is green, it has a really sweet smell to it, so it makes sense why animals are attracted to it. But guys, what we'll do now is we will do a quick overview of the cooling system, and then we'll do material and tools. Alright guys, so our cooling system. We have a reservoir here. This is an aftermarket radiator at 250,000 kilometers. My original radiator started leaking. Guys, this is our top radiator hose. So the hot coolant comes from the block through this hose. This side will be warm. This is our bottom radiator hose. This is the return back to the engine block. And then guys, right here, this here is our thermostat housing. So guys, your thermostat, it's an on-off switch. It's either open or closed. It stays closed until you hit operating temperature, and then it'll pop open. There's nothing in between. And nowadays, if your thermostat fails, it'll fail in the open position, so you don't have an overheating issue all of a sudden. So guys, this is a very simple job. It's a simple car, so I mean, this is a great experience once this is all done, and you're also going to save yourself a fair bit of money. Alright guys, this is our materials list. So we have our gloves, we have our engine degreaser, and then we have our Honda brand coolant. Guys, for whatever reason, Honda recommends you use their brand. It's a little more expensive, but the price is really negligible long term. So guys, with this in mind, let's do the tools list. Alright guys, this is our tools list. So I have a 10mm box end wrench. That's going to be for the thermostat housing. I have channel locks or water pump pliers. That is going to be for the clamp for the top radiator hose. I have my pan, and then I have a funnel. Guys, be aware of one thing. When you go to recycle your automotive fluids, these places don't want you mixing fluids together. So if you have your pan for engine oil, and then you put coolant into it, and they will notice the oil at the top of the coolant. They may not take it, and we want to be environmentally responsible. We want to take care of the planet. So guys, make the small investment. Have an oil pan, and then also have another pan for your other fluids. Guys, with that in mind, let's get started. Alright guys, so the cutout here, the cutout right here, that is where the plug is. So the white part, that is the plug right there. So I'm going to take that out, and then we're going to start to drain out the radiator. And guys, make sure that your pan is underneath so you catch all the coolant that comes out. And guys, by taking off your radiator cap, you're going to bring air into the system, so it's going to drain out a lot faster. If you leave the cap on, you're just going to get a glugging type of sound as air is going into it to drain out. It's just like turning a pop bottle over, and you see the bubbles going up. But we're going to let this drain out, and in the meantime, we'll take off our coolant reservoir, and then we'll clean it all out. Alright, so we'll take the cap off our coolant reservoir. Looks all black inside. I think the tube is starting to deteriorate. Alright guys, so we'll put our coolant into a container. And you can see how it's all black like up here, it's all black. The rubber hose is deteriorating. That's what the problem is. But guys, with that in mind, what I'll do is we'll pull the cap off, we'll put it back on, and then we are going to clean this out. And then the next thing we're going to do, or before I do that, I'm going to take the pan out from the bottom of the car. Guys, I highly suggest clean up right away. Like I said, this stuff is highly toxic for animals. And alright guys, I can hear coolant still dripping. So what I'm going to do is I want to get the plug. And I want to throw it back into the bottom of the radiator. It's stuck. So guys, that's our plug right there. It just has an O-ring. Alright guys, next thing we'll do is we're going to clean out our reservoir. So we're going to take our degreaser. We're going to add water, put the lid back on, and then we're going to shake it. And also put your thumb over, or your finger over the top. So guys, it's still pretty filthy. I think what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna grab a towel and then grab a stick and try to clean this out the best I can. But I think the problem here is that the rubber hose for the cap is now deteriorating, and that's why it's becoming all scummy on the inside. Yeah, the rubber is starting to get old. It's starting to deteriorate. Fact of life. Alright guys, so with that in mind, what I'm going to do now is we're going to take the thermostat out of the housing. But before we take the thermostat out of the housing, we're going to go and turn our heater core all the way to maximum heat. So when we send water through the cooling system, it's also going to clean out the heater core. Alright guys, next thing we're going to do is take our temperature and go to max. That's going to open our heater core to allow the water and coolant to cycle through and be flushed out. Alright guys, this is our thermostat housing. So we have a 10 mil here, and then we have a 10 mil down here. So this is the return from the radiator. So like I said, this is your supply from the engine block. So your hot coolant will go here, and then it'll return with warm coolant down here. So you also have your lines, these here, these two lines here that go to back there. That is for your heater core. We're also going to flush it out. But guys, what I'll do right now is I'm going to take this 10 mil out, this 10 mil out. And guys, once again, make sure that you have your pan underneath it, because there will be coolant that comes out. Alright guys, so I'm going to take the 10 mil out. A socket's not going to fit, so I'll just use the box end of a wrench. And guys, I don't think penetrating oil is really necessary. I mean, I do this all the time with this car, so there's no reason for this to really seize up. Alright guys, these are the bolts for our thermostat housing. They're both the same. So this is our thermostat housing. You can see the gap here. Alright guys, this is our thermostat, and keep one thing in mind with the thermostat. These two little tabs, they do fit one way into the housing. With this out of the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the housing back on, and then we are going to start to send water through the system. Guys, in this case, I'm not going to replace the thermostat, but normally when I was doing the coolant flushes on this car, I was changing it every second flush. But guys, what I'll do now is I'll put this back together, and then what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect our upper radiator hose here, and then we're going to start sending water through the system. And guys, one other thing, I took the intake manifold out. The intake manifold would sit right here, so all you have to do is just turn it out of the way and it'll make it easier access for you. Alright guys, with the thermostat housing back in, what we're going to do is we're going to take off our upper radiator hose. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the hose, the garden hose, into here. And what's that going to do? It's going to send water down the radiator through our return from the radiator. It'll go to the block, and then it's going to come out our upper radiator hose. Guys, I don't think you need to run all that much water, but once again, throw a pan underneath it so you don't make a mess of all the coolant. Alright guys, so this is our upper radiator hose that's detached. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to angle it down so it'll go straight into the pan at the bottom. Guys, be careful because we have the fan here, and any plugs like this or anything like that, we don't want to get that all wet either. Alright guys, so what you're going to do is you're just going to run water through until you see clear water come out of the hose. Now this is a small car, so you really don't have to take very long to do it. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the thermostat back into the housing, and then we're going to start to refill the system. So what I'm going to do is I'll put coolant here that'll go straight into the block until this is full. I'll put the hose back onto here, and then we're going to fill our radiator and our reservoir, and then take the car for a test drive. Alright guys, so for our thermostat, once again we have these two schnibbies here, these tabs. So it's going to go into the top like this. You can't just throw it any way you want. But guys, what I'll do is I'm going to put this in, I'll tighten up the bolts, and then we'll move on to refilling the system. Alright guys, so we're going to refill the system. Really quickly, guys, before you start refilling the system, make sure that you undo the radiator sump plug, because that was plugged in, and as we're pouring water through, it's going down the radiator and coming up here. But everything from here to the very bottom, including this hose here, that's still all full of water. Having some water in the system is fine, but that's after we've maxed out with our coolant. And guys, with this coolant, this Honda coolant, it says right here not to add water. So just throw it in the way it is. But what I'll do is I'm going to fill it through the top hose. That is going to fill up the block of the car. So guys, I'm going to fill this up. That's going to fill up the block. Once I have a little bit coming out from here, then I'm going to put the hose onto here. We're going to undo this, fill this up, the radiator. We're going to fill up the reservoir, and then we're going to go and take the car for a drive. And guys, make sure that you squeeze the hoses just to try to get some of the air out of it. Alright, that looks okay. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to fill up our reservoir. Alright guys, with the system refilled, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put everything away. We're going to take the car for a quick test drive. It needs to get up to operating temperature, and then we're going to come back. Alright guys, so I took it for a test drive. I hit operating temperature. So the last thing we're going to do is now we're going to fill it up the rest of the way. The air has had a chance to work its way around the system, and it should be now here. So guys, our radiator cap, because the system is warm, put a towel, a shirt, put something thick between you and the cap, so anything that comes out will hit the fabric. Alright, once the level goes back down, I'm going to put the radiator cap, and that'll be it for this job. Guys, one other thing, make sure that you keep an eye on the level in your reservoir for a couple days, because anything, if you have a leak or anything, it's going to start pulling out of the reservoir. If your reservoir is constantly going empty, then you have a leak somewhere. But for the most part, everything else here looks okay. So guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean up, and then we're going to do an overview of this job. Alright guys, so that concludes this project. So guys, I think the hardest part on this project is just getting the thermostat out of the housing. It's a little bit of a tight space to get into, but other than that guys, it's a relatively easy, straightforward job. Guys, the time on this job, the time was about 75 minutes. I mean, there was nothing to contend with. I didn't run into any problems. Guys, the cost on this job, the coolant was about $40. Guys, if you're going to take this to a dealership, I know for a fact that they now charge here $150 an hour, and this is at least an hour's job. So by the time it's all said and done, and taxes and everything else, you will have saved yourself probably around $200. Guys, one other thing, when it comes to getting rid of your old coolant, take it to a quick lube place. Any place that does drive-in oil changes, they will take this in for you. Don't dump it down a drain. Don't leave this stuff out. It's toxic. It's bad for the environment. So please be responsible when you go ahead to recycle the old fluid. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope something here is going to help you on your project when you need to go ahead and do that. Guys, until next time, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next project.